Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my updated Game Week 1 team and I have made a few changes since the most recent draft that I posted just over a week ago. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like and subscribe, and also if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe as well. We are on the road to 80,000 subscribers, but without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, before we jump into the content today, I just want to give a massive shout out to Surfshark as they have sponsored today's video. Surfshark is a VPN service which, as we've spoken about recently, allows you to access content from over 100 different countries by simply changing your virtual location with the click of a button. However, Surfshark also tackles another key issue, which is keeping you safe online. Their Clean Web 2.0 feature allows you to block ads, block pop-ups, and monitor and avoid data breaches and vicious malware attacks too. And you can also allow specific apps and websites to bypass the VPN as well. On top of all of these amazing features, this service is also available on unlimited devices once you sign up. That includes your laptop, phone, console, computer, whatever it may be. You will be able to access Surfshark on all of those devices once you sign up. Not only are Surfshark sponsoring today's video, but they are also offering everyone that is watching this an additional 3 months for free if you sign up using the code FPLRaptor or click the first link in the description. I myself have been using Surfshark for over 6 months, so I believe it is a genuinely really good product. And of course, it does massively support the channel as well. So do make sure to check it out, link in the description. Massive shout out to Surfshark for sponsoring the content. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. So jumping into the draft, and I am currently still in a 3-5-2, despite me thinking that 4-4-2 is potentially a slightly more flexible formation to start the season if we're purely looking at formations. I just think there are too many midfielders this season that I want. I would say that my shortlist probably has 15 to 18 midfielders, but maybe only like 7 or 8 defenders and then 3 or 4 forwards. So it really does make sense this season for me to have 5 very, very strong midfielders. So most of my drafts at the moment are in a 3-5-2. And this draft has 1 million in the bank. And I am trying very, very hard wherever possible without sacrificing the team too much to leave a little bit of money in the bank. There's 2 reasons for that. The first reason is it leaves you really flexible going into Game Week 2, Game Week 3 to jump on any emerging bandwagons, and there will always be at least 1 or 2 players that we didn't consider that it might be quite tricky to get to without money in the bank because they start to increase in price. So I feel like it allows you flexible to react to whatever happens in the first couple of game weeks. And also Spurs and Chelsea both have a pretty big fixture swing in Game Week 3, and a lot of us aren't starting the season with many Chelsea or Spurs players. I myself actually have 2 in this draft from Spurs and Chelsea, but that being said, I still want the option to move to more the likes of Son, Sterling, Maddison could be really nice options going into Game Week 3, and a lot of people will either be priced out of it or they won't have the money in the bank to make that move. So this draft, I think the big update based on what I've shown you previously is it feels a lot more flexible. I've had to make a couple of sacrifices, but it's got that £1 million in the bank. It's got some really nice price points in the team, and the bench is a lot stronger too. And I've also looked ahead to future game weeks and potential fixture swings as well. So I feel like this is the most sensible, balanced draft I've built yet, but I will explain where the limitations are, and of course it could still change. This is currently rated at 92% over at Fantasy Football Hub with a predicted points of 66.2 in Game Week 1. If you would like to get a completely free rating by their artificial intelligence, it's completely free. First link in the description, enter your team, get your team rating, get your predicted points, and then drop it below in the comments. And if you do like Fantasy Football Hub and you want to sign up after that as a paying member, you can currently get 50% off. Second link in the description. For as little as £3 per month, you can get access to absolutely everything on their site. So it's a really, really good deal. Do check it out. Going into the goalkeeper situation, I'm not going to talk about it too much because I've spoken about this a lot anyway. I do still think I like a £4.5 million goalkeeper. Yes, we've got Ramsdale, Martinez, Onana now coming in at 5 million as well. There are tons of really nice £5 million goalkeepers, and I may well regret going for a 4.5. But season upon season upon season, there is always at least 1 or 2 £4.5 million goalkeepers that emerge as really nice options, keeping clean sheets and making quite a few saves as well. And I'm just hoping that I get that correct. Currently, I've got Johnston. Now, the reason for Johnston is simple. I just think the Crystal Palace are one of the better defences for the £4.5 million goalkeepers. I don't know whether it will be Johnston or Gaeta. I do believe it will be Johnston, but if there are any worries, then of course I will not risk it. I think my second choice would probably be Flecken, and I think both Brentford and Crystal Palace I would expect to be around mid-table for expected goals conceded this season, but I will keep an eye on it in the lead up to Game Week 1. I could well end up on Onana. If I do go for Onana, though, I would end up dropping Luke Shaw, and at the moment, I just do really like Luke Shaw. Areola is my 4.0 of choice at the moment, but if another £4 million keeper emerges that I think is a slightly better option, then of course I'll go there. So goalkeeper situation hasn't changed much, but I still do prefer the 4.5s just because I think that 0.5, whether you keep it in the bank or use it on an outfield player, is probably worth the saving. The back three hasn't changed in a while now, so I'm going to really quickly fly through it. Luke Shaw, pretty good for bonus points and will continue to be good for bonus points despite Onana coming in. There seems to be this myth that Luke Shaw will now lose all of his bonus points because Onana's in the team. That's not true. And of course, Onana being in the team, if he is the keeper that we think he is, more clean sheets for Manchester United, which means more points for Luke Shaw anyway. I still think he's worth the extra 0.5 on top of Onana, just because he's on some set pieces and his attacking data isn't bad at all. And I would expect him to still get a few attacking returns throughout the season. So I do like Luke Shaw. I may well switch to Onana, but I do think I want some Manchester United defensive cover. Estupiñán is obviously nailed in most people's teams. Over 50% of people have Estupiñán. I think Brighton are an excellent defence. He's got the best attacking data of all of the Brighton defenders. It feels like a relatively easy pick at 5 million. And then the reason I've got Gabriel is simple. Again, Arsenal, one of the best defences in the league last season. Whilst I do think there are an array of excellent Arsenal attackers to choose from. And in some of my drafts, I've had Saka, Martinelli and Jesus. I just feel like it's a little bit safer to go for two attackers and cover that Arsenal defence because it will be fairly highly owned and Arsenal will keep clean sheets in the opening game week. So I really do like that back three. The fourth defender is actually Rico Henry, and Rico Henry has been in a lot of my drafts as well. At the moment, he is still my favoured £4.5 million defender. I think there are a lot of good options. I spoke about that in my budget gems video earlier in the week, so I do really like some of the other options. But for me, Henry's got fixtures, he's got some creativity, he's playing in a decent defence as well. And I just think that he's the sort of player that you would want for a 4.5. He ticks all of the boxes that you would need. The new addition is the fifth defender, has now moved from a 4.0 defender such as a Bell or a Baldock. And I've actually got Ben Chilwell. Now, I've been going back and forth on this. I've had a couple of drafts where Ben Chilwell is tucked on the bench. As I said, Chelsea have that fixture swing in game week 3. And I know it's very, 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 very easy to sit there and say, in game week 3, I'm going to do, or game week 4, let's say, I'll do Estupiñán to Chilwell or to James. It gives me a few weeks to decide. It allows me to sell Estupiñán when he goes into his more difficult fixtures. And I'll know exactly who I want out of Reece James and Chilwell, which is absolutely fair enough. That does make a lot of sense. But you have to remember, you don't know what else will happen that will require your transfers. And what happens if also Sterling, Son, Maddison all look really good as well, going into that really nice fixture run? What are you going to do? Take a massive hit, or are you going to have to prioritise one or the other? So yes, it maybe is easier to just say, I'll wait and see. And maybe it does leave you a little bit more flexible rather than starting with Chilwell. But it also leaves you one transfer down. And I've looked at it and I don't really need the money that I would have by doing Chilwell to like a Bell or a Baldock. It leaves my bench a little bit weaker. And I don't necessarily need that money in my starting 11 based on the team that I've currently got. So at the moment, I've got Chilwell in my team. And I like the idea of starting with him, being one step ahead for game week 3 and beyond. And I do really, really think he'll have an excellent season. I was speaking to a few Chelsea fans. They seem to think that role that Chilwell will play under Pochettino is a very, very attacking one. He looks good so far in pre-season. He looks fully fit as well. So I am getting more and more on board with the idea of starting the season in game week 1 with Chilwell. I don't need him for the opening 2 or 3 game weeks. Rico Henry rotates really, really lovely with Luke Shaw. So in the games where Luke Shaw, in the game weeks, I should say, where Luke Shaw doesn't have the best fixture, Rico Henry can come in. And then when Rico Henry doesn't have a good fixture, Luke Shaw comes in. And then the idea with Chilwell is that in game week 4, when Estupiñán's fixtures do drop off, I have the option to bring Chilwell in. If Estupiñán is performing excellently and I still want to play him, then I've got a little bit of a benching headache, but that is absolutely fine. I'd rather have the options there than not have them. So let me know what you think down below in the comments of that new addition, because Chilwell is one of the major changes to this team. I just feel like he's got such high upside. He's always got really, really good attacking data. And I just want a piece of the action with those Pochettino fullbacks. And I think that Chilwell could really, really start the season well, assuming, of course, that he could stay fit. So that's the back line. Let's move on to the midfield. So again, a lot of these midfielders have stayed the same from previous drafts that I've shown you, but there has been a little bit of movement. We'll start with the ones that haven't moved at all for me recently. Bukayo Saka, I still do believe, is the best Arsenal midfielder to own. Of course, you can see here that I also think Martinelli is great, and I don't mind Ødegaard either. And obviously, Gabriel Jesus is an excellent option too. But for me, Saka has good data, excellent data at home, and obviously the opening fixture against Forest is a really nice one. And he is on penalties too, and a few set pieces. So I feel like he has multiple routes to points. I feel like he's the most nailed Arsenal attacker, maybe alongside Ødegaard. And I just don't see a reason to go without Saka. If he was like 9.5 and Martinelli was 8, then all of a sudden you're saying 1.5 between them, then yeah, maybe I do go for Martinelli. But when there's only 0.5 between those two and there is exactly the same price as Ødegaard, I just don't see much of a reason to drop Saka. And Rashford's a similar kind of reason for Rashford versus Bruno Fernandes. If Rashford was 1.5 million more than Bruno, then all of a sudden I would not have Rashford in my team. I would definitely be going for Bruno. But when he's only 0.5 more, when you look at the goal threat difference between the two of them, Rashford is such a greater goal threat than Bruno Fernandes that I think it's worth the extra 0.5. Of course, Bruno is more creative, and Bruno's on penalties and some set pieces. So there are loads of reasons that you would want to pick Bruno Fernandes. But I feel like if it is one versus the other, for me, it is Rashford. I've recently had both of them in my drafts, but at the moment, I've just ended up dropping one of them to leave me some money in the bank and to also go for some other midfielders. So I just about prefer Rashford at the moment. Let me know down below in the comments, who do you currently have in your drafts? Rashford, Bruno, neither, or both. But those two have been in most of my drafts recently. And so is Phil Foden. Phil Foden's a tricky one because it really does depend on pre-season, the Community Shield as well. And also, Man City are the early kickoff in game week 1. So there's a very good chance that we get some early team news going into game week 1. I just love Phil Foden. I think he's such a talent. I think his data's always really strong too. And as I've said for a while now, I think with the sales that they've made, Man City, the likes of Riyad Mahrez leaving, Gundogan leaving, Bernardo Silva's been rumoured to, but it looks like he will be staying now. And also just the changes in the system as well. Obviously, KDB may or may not be fit for game week 1. I just feel like there is too much up in the air at City and too many places that are currently unoccupied for Phil Foden to be sat on the bench in game week 1, 2, 3, etc. I think he will start the season most of the games. Whether that's in the number 8 role, whether it's rotating with Grealish, which I don't think it will be, or whether it's on the right, I don't really know. I would predict at the moment most likely to be the right wing unless City sign a right winger very, very soon and he's integrated into the team. If that is the case and they sign someone like a Rafinha who they've been linked to, then maybe it will be the case that he sits in that Gundogan role, or if KDB is absent in game week 1, maybe he plays the KDB role. But I think generally there are just too many positions that he won't start. So unless I get any information otherwise, Foden's very, very likely to be in my game week 1 team. I just love him as an option. Brian Mbeumo is one that I've been going back and forth on. At points, I preferred Matoma, but thinking about it in more detail, their data was almost identical last season for non-penalty expected goal involvement. However, Mbeumo will probably play a slightly more central talismanic role for Brentford in the absence of Tony. I think that overall, not over the first 3, but overall over the first 6 to 8 game weeks, I prefer Brentford's fixtures. And Mbeumo is on some corners and some free kicks as well, mainly corners, and he should be, in the absence of Tony, on penalties too. There are so many reasons for me not to pick Mbeumo. I do think Matoma is a great option. I would like to get Matoma into this team. But if it's one or the other, which is in a lot of my drafts, I only have one £6.5 million spot. For me, Mbeumo is just coming out on top. So at the moment, here's my £6.5 million midfielder of choice. The new addition that you've not yet seen in any of my drafts is Martinelli. Now, the reason for Martinelli is simple. I think when he plays and when he starts, he is the best Arsenal asset to own. If he got a similar amount of minutes to Saka, I would probably prefer Martinelli to Saka. The reason he hasn't been in any of my drafts, and the reason that I always give all these caveats, is you don't expect him to play as many minutes as Saka. But towards the back end of last season, he was still relatively nailed, even with Trossard coming in. I still think that he will see a little bit more rotation than Saka, but my belief is that over the opening 5 or 6 game weeks, Arsenal will go very, very strong with their team, and Martinelli is their starting left winger. There is no one that comes close to him. I know Trossard is decent, but in pre-season, Trossard has been used a little bit as sort of like a left centre mid in the Xhaka role. We obviously expect that to be the role that Havertz plays when he's fit and integrated into the team. So it could be that Havertz plays there and all of a sudden Trossard does compete with Martinelli. It could be that Havertz and Trossard rotate in that left number 8 spot as well. It could be that Ødegaard switches positions. It could be that Nketiah is actually the one that is competing with Martinelli on that left wing. We don't really know at the moment. Arsenal do have quite a plethora of options to play in all of those attacking roles. And a lot of them are interchangeable as well. You could conceivably see a few of them move in spots. I still think that with all of that being said, Martinelli is first choice. And it would be crazy to not start your first choice left wing in the opening couple of games. So Martinelli might be one that you need to transfer out relatively soon. The other reason that I like Martinelli, I don't have an issue with picking him now in game week 1 the more I think about it, especially if I leave 1 million in the bank. I've got options. I can go from, well, you wouldn't need it anyway, but you can go from Martinelli to Maddison or Sterling. And assuming he doesn't go up in price, you can do Martinelli to Son in game week 3 or game week 4 as well, if Son looks really good too. So I feel like that price point is really nice for Martinelli. You've got an easy downgrade. If you leave money in the bank, if you can find an extra 0.5, maybe slightly better, to then be able to move to Son too. I don't feel like there's much risk involved picking him. I suppose the only issue that you've got is I've also got Foden in there as well. Let's say Foden is a bit of a rotation risk. Let's say Martinelli's a bit of a rotation risk. All of a sudden, I then have 2 issues in my team. But Martinelli and Foden to Sterling and Maddison feels relatively straightforward. So I actually really, really like this midfield. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of the midfield 5. You can see I've got 3 Arsenal assets, which means that I don't have Gabriel Jesus as one of my 2 forwards. So let's check him out. So as you can see, there has been a change to the second forward. I don't need to discuss Erling Haaland at all. I'm not even going to discuss him at all. We're all going to own him. We're going to captain him. The second forward has moved from Gabriel Jesus to Nkunku. I still believe that Gabriel Jesus, for me, is the best striker to start the season, the best forward in FPL. That being said, I really do like Martinelli as an option, and I think Martinelli versus Jesus is incredibly close. And just due to his quality of finishing and the extra points for goals and clean sheets, I actually slightly prefer Martinelli to Jesus. The other reason that I don't mind making that switch from Jesus to Martinelli is the more I think about it, the more I like Christopher Nkunku. His data last season for Leipzig in the league was really, really strong. Also, he's on penalties too, as far as we know. They just don't have another good penalty taker, and Nkunku is a good penalty taker. I've seen talk about Reece James taking them. I don't think that's fairly likely, and I think Sterling is an absolutely terrible penalty taker. So if Pochettino has any data available to him about Raheem Sterling's penalty taking record, then surely Nkunku will be on them. So I just think he's a really nice player to start the season with. It was actually a 0.74 penalty expected goal involvement last season in the league on penalties, playing in a Chelsea team which you would expect to attack better this season. And like I said with Ben Chilwell, and like I said when I talked about the money that I have in the bank, I like the idea of being one step ahead. Because Chelsea and Spurs will have players that you want for game week 3 and onwards. I can almost guarantee that people will take hits and be scrambling to bring in Spurs and Chelsea players for game week 3, game week 4. I know you might think now, I don't want to own Chelsea and Spurs players. They were terrible last season. Even if they are terrible this season, they've still got excellent fixtures and their players will still get points. I feel like sometimes we associate how good a team is with FPL points, and sometimes it's not the case. Nkunku could score every week and Chelsea could be absolutely stinky. So I still feel like we are going to want players from 3 and 4 from those two teams. And in this draft here, the bulk of the team is really, really strong, fairly standard and fairly template. However, I've already got Nkunku, I've already got Chilwell, and I've got 1 million in the bank to move to the likes of Maddison, Son, even start to move to Kane if I want to, which is probably unlikely. And then Pedro Porro in defence is another good option. So I'm looking at this team and I love it. I can't really see many major weaknesses with it, apart from there is a real absence of Liverpool. And you could say that is a major issue with the team because a lot of us, myself included, are predicting Liverpool to have a much stronger season this year. And Liverpool are an elite attack. Let's not get it twisted. They are one of the best attacks that the Premier League has ever seen, and I think they still will be. I know they've sold Mane. I don't really think that influences them too much. We saw last season, Darwin, Salah are two of the players with the best data in the league. So was Jota. Even Diaz and Cody Gakpo's, their data wasn't quite as strong, but all of these players accumulate such incredible expected goals and expected assists. And yes, they need to finish those chances, but I do feel like we are probably going to regret not having a Liverpool attacker in our team, or maybe even Trent. Trent is basically an attacker at this point. You're probably going to regret not having any Liverpool. So that's the only issue that I see with this team. But of course, the reason for having no Liverpool is if you remove Trent and you remove Salah, you can spread the funds across a really nice team and have a super strong bench too. I'm just wondering, is it worth squeezing in one of the other slightly less nailed Liverpool options as a result? For example, I could go Darwin instead of Nkunku, or Gakpo instead of Nkunku, or instead of Foden, I could go for Diaz, or I could go for Jota. So I'm just wondering, if I do stick with something like this and I don't have Salah and I don't have Trent, do I maybe still want to squeeze in a Liverpool attacker of some kind? Let me know down below in the comments if I were to do that, which of the 4 that I mentioned outside of Salah and Trent do you think is the best Liverpool attacker to own? But that is the draft. Like I said, 92% rating according to Fantasy Football Hub. Let's now take a look at a slightly alternative draft. I'm just going to show the draft in its entirety, which is the draft I've currently built if I were to have Mohamed Salah in my team. So this is my alternative draft that I built, which has Mohamed Salah. And as you can see, according to Fantasy Football Hub, this actually has a slightly better team rating at 94%. And like I said, you can get your team rated for free by clicking the link in the description. I do really, really like this team. The main issue is it's just not very flexible in that it's a 4-5-1. So you've got to have 2 £4.5 million forwards, which means if Haaland doesn't feature at all, you're essentially down to 10 men, unless one of your 4.5 forwards gets some minutes. And you also, in this draft at least, with the personnel that I have chosen, you have to rotate £4.5 million defenders in the starting 11. Henry and Pau Torres actually do rotate perfectly. They've got really, really nice fixture rotation, but it still doesn't feel ideal because then the issue that you have, yes, Henry and Pau Torres rotate perfectly, but Luke Shaw's fixtures certainly aren't perfect, and Estepinian from game week 4 onwards has some pretty tricky fixtures too. So I feel like this draft just leaves you a little bit inflexible, but it does allow you to get a really strong back line, a super strong midfield, and Haaland, and Salah. So I like it for that reason. I think if I were to go for this draft realistically though, if I were to try and get Salah into a team, I think I would have to drop Phil Foden to Matoma and then use that 1 million that I would have to probably upgrade. I don't know. It could even be something as simple as Henry to James, but I feel like even James or Chilwell, but then I feel like that's introducing further issues. So maybe the better move to do would be Foden down to Matoma and then use that million to upgrade Semenyo or Archer to maybe a 5.5 such as Morris, or upgrade them both to £5 million like Kalajdzic and Adebayo or something like that, and have both of your cheaper strikers have the option to get some minutes. So I'm not ruling this out at all. And for large parts of the last week, I've looked at drafts and I've had drafts where Salah has been in there. It's just when I take out Salah and compare it to the previous draft, and I just think the other draft, yes, it doesn't have Salah, which is a big loss, but the draft just looks so much stronger in general. The bench is a lot stronger. I've got 1 million in the bank. Just generally speaking, it's such a more flexible draft. So at the moment, I am struggling to justify getting the Egyptian King in, but I want him in my team. I'm desperate to have Salah in the team. I just can't quite justify it at the moment. Let me know down below what you think of the two drafts. Do you prefer the Salah one? Do you prefer the non-Salah one? And feel free to drop your draft in the comments and I'll reply to a few of them as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my updated Game Week 1 draft team. Hopefully you did enjoy it. And like I said at the start of the video, do make sure to check out Surfshark. Link in the description for a really, really good deal. If you have enjoyed today's video, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We are on the road to 80,000 subscribers and I really, really do appreciate all of the support. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.